Welcome to the Journey of the Universe 10 Years Later podcast. My name is Sam King, and today I'm really excited to be joined by Rebecca Sophia Strong. And Rebecca Sophia is a therapist, filmmaker, creative director, and budding executive producer whose work bridges cosmology, anthropology, psychology, art, and awe. She leads Strong Solution Therapy Boulder, offering IFS-informed EMDR intensives, and is the conceiver and creator of Cosmogenesis, the story of us, a groundbreaking 360-degree multimedia immersive full dome live stage play. She also facilitates group dance journeys, leads the Women of Wisdom coaching circle, and this fall will walk the Camino alongside IFS founder Dick Schwartz, all as part of her mission to activate the genetic, creative spark in humanity to expand healing, imagination, and belonging on a cosmic scale. Thank you so much for chatting with me today, Rebecca Sophia.
Mm. It's a pleasure to be here, Sam, truly.
Mhm.
Thanks for having me.
Such a gift and to speak with you, such a kindred spirit in many
Mm.
ways, with such a wide-ranging journey and so
Mm.
many gifts and talents that have drawn you into your engagement with the universe story. And so I would just love for you to tell us a little bit about how you became captivated by this larger universe story and the work of Brian Thomas Swim.
Yeah, that's great. Well, it's such an honor to be here and to specifically speak to your audience because I feel like I'm guessing that your audience has reference points to a lot of the reference points that have gone into cosmogenesis. Uh, so as a kid, I had profound experiences in nature, starting at
Mm,
age 6, where I one moment, one kind of epiphanic moment was standing with bare feet in the mud in Western New York in the fall, and we had a huge 80-foot maple tree behind us, a red maple, and I just had a lucid moment of my feet in the dirt, feeling like I had an external spine, which was this
mhm,
grand tree, uh, and the clouds and the breath of the earth were moving, and I felt intuitively that there's a bigger intelligence
mhm,
at work, and that there was something beyond the human story that was alive and had and engaging, and it also felt responsive. Like it was perceiving us as much as I was perceiving that. And fast forward, I think it was 1999, I heard a lecture by Brian Thomas Swim. And one of the questions I had been asking myself as a child and as an early adult was like, what is this pulse of life? I accessed transcendent moments through movement. So dance and movement has been like my mother tongue. Um, and when I heard Brian, I heard a lecture literally on a VHS tape. I'm dating myself. Um, him teaching Canticle to the Cosmos, and the way in which he was teaching, as well as the content itself, something lined up inside of me, and I thought, this is the answer to a lifelong question of what is this bigger context, what is this generative pulse that I sense, especially through my body and through my heart and through my imagination. And when I got introduced to Brian's work, my mind turned ablaze, and I spent 10 years ingesting every single teaching I could find my hands on, and then ended up getting to study with him in person. So Brian and his work have been a huge influence in the activation of my own creativity.
mm. It's so amazing to hear these different modalities that have shaped you. Your early epiphanies in the natural world, your journey into psychology and all of your professional expertise, as well as movement, right? A way of bringing this larger connection to the earth and the universe into our bodies, really embodying this larger cosmology. And I'm curious to know more about sort of the inception of this really remarkable multimedia project you're bringing forth, Cosmogenesis, and some of the other influences that have shaped you as you have
Mm,
really gone from this period of studying and deep inquiry into a creative offering that is
mm,
unfurling all across the country and even the world.
Yeah, thank you. Oh my goodness, so many people's research and life work have impacted me directly. I am a person, something to know about me is that in my late 20s and early 30s, I was kind of obsessed with the question of like, what is mine to do and how can I contribute to this great story and this great unfolding? And what I ended up doing was studying. I studied with Phil Plotkin and David Abram and Joanna Macy. I got to study with Brian Swim, Gabriel Roth from the Five Rhythms, uh, Clarissa Pancola Estes. So their work really shaped me. Thomas Berry. I didn't get to meet him in person, but I feel like he's deeply embedded into my being. I think you could probably relate. Um, yeah, so I um, at first like what came before this multimedia live immersive stage play called Cosmogenesis, the story of us. Um, what came first was a one woman show. So I was a part of a year long immersion for visionary artists through the Animas Valley Institute way back when in the early 2000s. And as part of our offering at the end of this year long, we were invited to offer something to the community. And I really didn't know. Like, I was in this deep apprenticeship with the story of the universe and Brian's work and Thomas's work and my own embodiment journey and my own healing journey. And I felt a deep call and a deep guidance that came from outside, something other than me, something bigger than I could have imagined myself. And I argued with that guidance, but ultimately surrendered because a gravitas to it. I felt compelled. So I started to tell the story of the universe, which I then got commissioned to tell um, to an artist and her family. And that began a 5 year journey of sharing the story as a one woman show. And then I was at a time in my life where I also wrote a 15-part curriculum, which we are going to teach at the University of Colorado in the astronomy department this coming January. And there was a time in my life where I put the work down for 3 years. And then in 2019, I picked it back up and I said, do you still want to partner with me? Whatever this is that is guiding me. I literally set a date um, in the calendar, arrived at my friend's restaurant and said, hey, Cosmogenesis, if you still want to partner with me, meet me at this place at like 7:30. It was like what, April 17th, 2019. And I literally had this idea for a film, I had an idea for 5 characters, but I didn't know the context. And so yeah, I walk into this restaurant and within seconds, and I'm not kidding you, within seconds, there was again, like a knowingness that I was not generating it. It was from outside of myself. I don't know how else to describe it, and I just literally picked up my pen, opened my notebook, and started writing, and then spent the next year and a half every Thursday night from 7:30 to 9 basically just listening. I felt like I was just listening um, to I knew this was going to be a film. I wrote it as a film. I studied screenplay writing along the way because I'm not trained as a screenwriter or a playwright. Um, but I knew that this was a promise that would kill me to break. Like I knew it was mine, and I was willing, available for it. And so along the way, I read two books about screenwriting, and one of them said, "Hey, write a list when you're thinking about characters. Write a list of the top 20 people who have influenced you in your life so far." That was really easy for me to do because I had so many incredible mentors and had traveled a lot and met really, really incredible human beings in my lifetime. I feel blessed for that. And and so I wrote down the top 20, and then I started to see patterns in those 20. And from that became the list of characters that are now the characters in Cosmogenesis.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing to honor all these influences by giving them a kind of personality in this experience, you know?
Hmm.
And I think about, when Thomas Berry talks about the universe story, he talks about the values of differentiation and also subjectivity and communion. In other words,
Yes.
there's particularity in the universe. Every part of the universe is unique and yet deeply interwoven. And so I think it's
Yes.
really remarkable that you have honored that in the structure
Mhm.
of the experience. And so I'd love to hear a little bit more about the nature of this multimedia immersion. And
Mm.
yeah, just to tell us about some of the upcoming experiences that you are helping to bring forth.
Mm. Thank you. Yes. So, and yes, I did have those three elements in mind the entire time I was writing and weaving the story was
Mm,
subjectivity, differentiation, and communion. That I wanted every scene and every character to somehow always be weaving itself back to those three principles. Um, well, let me go right to, we are actually in line for producing and premiering Cosmogenesis in partnership with the University of Maine and the Versant Power Astronomy Center in Orono, together in partnership with a local theater company called True North Theater. So this has been a 5 year, 5.5 year process with at least 10,000 steps, likely more, right? And we are carrying the ball across the finish line, and in November, we're splashing this beautiful project into the world, and I'm so grateful for our partners in Maine. And to say that I've been partnering with the Fisk Planetarium here in Boulder since 2021. I finished the script
mm,
in 2021, January 6th, ironically, 2021, and then um, called the planetarium in May, and 2 weeks later they called me back. The director called me back, and we've been collaborating ever since, building a team, raising money, refining the script through the help of the theater department at CU Boulder and community members here in Boulder. Um, and so, yeah, so much has gone into this play. Um, John E. Powell, I got to meet him in Buffalo many years ago. And I was very moved by his research at UC Berkeley through the Othering and Belonging Institute. And as a movement practitioner, I'm someone who has trained a lot in movement modalities as well as teaching concepts through moving. So thinking on our feet, thinking while doing, doing while thinking. And in so I've got a character named Javier who is teaching the UC Berkeley research on othering and belonging, but we're putting it into motion. So
mm,
Lotus and her 5 peers are learning about these concepts of how to bridge versus break connection in the web of life. It gets trickier, right? Between humans. We get triggered, we go into our amygdala. We are learning how to self-regulate and communicate through tension. And the classroom scene is really designed to teach these intellectual tools. And I would call them also psychospiritual and emotional tools. And not just as concepts, but as living practices that teachers could take from watching cosmogenesis and implement into their own classrooms.
Hmm. Wonderful that you're embedding both these larger themes about the nature of the universe and then also bringing in your psychology training and your deep attunement to the complexity of our inner lives and our interpersonal lives. And yeah, bringing the larger story of the universe into a kind of human and earth drama, I think is such
Mm,
a powerful way of bringing some of these teachings from astronomy and physics really to life, right? In an interactive way. If I could just um, dive into, I'm really struck by this, even the term cosmogenesis, right? I think it
mm,
came from Teilhard de Chardin, and I know it's the title of Brian Swimm's Autocosmology, this book he wrote. And it suggests like something in motion almost to me, like
mm,
cosmogenesis, like a
mhm,
universe that is creative. And I'm just curious to hear you reflect on what that term means and activates in
mm. Yeah, I love the question. Thanks, Sam.
you.
Uh, there's a bunch of research about particle physics, and what we have learned, what scientists have learned, is that when an electron is observed, it changes the nature and the behavior of the electron, right? And so when how do we apply that like in our own lives? How does cosmology become a functional cosmology, right? Like we're talking a lot with Martin Luther King and other scholars, other people's ideas about a functional ecology, right? And Thomas Berry brought in, I think it was him who talked about functional cosmology. How do we make this functional in our lives, right?
Mhm.
And so we have this idea where the Newtonian physics also set something into motion as though we are uh, recipients of or spectators of like the black box universe. Thank you, Newton, for your work. And I think it's more alive than that. And I think that in my experience, when we have the capacity to observe the cosmos, we also have the capacity to respond to how that observation impacts us. And it's in the response, like Brian Swim used to say all the time, nature, sorry, time and space evolve with us. And I remember being in Ben Lomond in a Nature and Eros retreat with Carrie Brady and Thomas Swim in California, and we were standing under these huge redwoods, and we were out on this deck. I don't know, there were 20 of us maybe, and he's like, you guys, you gotta understand this. Like the river shapes the mountains, like the river impacts and shapes the contour of the mountains, and the mountains shape the flow and the direction of the river. There's this interplay happening, like time and space unfurl with us. I think, I'm going to leap a little bit towards what is my greatest hope for cosmogenesis.
Please.
It's to activate the creative spark. This creative spark, I feel like it's a genetic creative spark. I, I believe that we were designed to lead with our capacity of imagination. And I believe that imagination is an element of nature. I believe it's a force of nature. And especially when we align it to this experience of agape, amazing things happen. So when Thomas, when Brian Thomas Swim said, the universe, time and space unfurl with us, it astonished me because what happened inside of me was, oh, we can help shape reality. Human beings have the power to shape reality. We can bring something into the world and that impacts other people's lives. And and we can actually contribute. Newton's theory, it's like, no, we just stay in the audience our whole lives. Like if we translate Newtonian physics into how does that philosophy affect society or affect reality or affect and shape human behavior, it puts us in the passive seat. It puts us in the audience. It puts us it behind. It puts us as the, on the couch watching someone else's program, right? It puts us in a consumptive. It leans us towards, hey, you're just a consumer here. You're just That's my personal connection. That's how I connect. Newtonian physics versus Bohm's work, right? Or string theory. Like string theory says the frequency of the string determines the particle. Like to me, I see this. I have a golden retriever dog. He's amazing. His name is Luminescent, or Lumi for short. He's walking, he's just, he's out walking, he's doing his thing. And if I say, Lumi, hey, you want to play? Oh my God, he just did it. He's like, he comes to life. So I contribute a frequency towards him, and it determines how his particles align inside of his own structure. It creates a different response. We're in a living universe. We're in a call and response with nature. We're in a call and response with our own creativity, with our own lives. We have a lot more power than we think. We have a lot more capacity to write the story that we want to see. And I think this is incredibly important right now. At this moment in time, my hope for cosmogenesis is that cosmogenesis reaches all 8+ billion people with its 13.8 billion year story through their local planetaria, whether it's in Seattle or Manhattan or Dubai or Valencia and beyond, uh, so that it it helps us to look with our deep time eyes through the layers of things, because there's a lot that is scary. There's a lot of human behavior in particular that's quite frightening right now and quite scary and quite divisive, right? It's like we're running around with scissors. And this is actually scene 14 of Cosmogenesis. We start with a ball of yarn, and the teacher literally throws it to each student and asks the question, because the question of this particular classroom that the teacher leads with is there a unifying story that unites all of life? And I believe there is, and I believe it's the 13.8 billion year story, hence what I've dedicated my life to telling. And in this scene, we're talking about bridging versus breaking, right? UC Berkeley's research, othering and belonging. And Javier takes a ball of thread and throws it around to the students. 5 of the characters are 19 and 20 years old, and asks the question, what strengthens this web of connectedness? And there's answers like trust, uh, compassion, curiosity, right? What breaks it? And so he brings out the scissors and they start cutting the thread, start cutting the web that's connected them, and asks, like, what damages the thread of connection? Fear, distrust, even gossip, like big things, war, right? Threat, anything that's threatening. And so how do we start to then rebuild that web of life? How do we, those of us who maybe have had the good fortune of intersecting with a teacher like Brian Swim or Thomas Berry, or being in your ecology classes, right? Mary Evelyn Tucker, Joanna Macy, like the tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people around the world who are teaching this, right? It's like if we've had the good fortune, maybe when we are met with tension, hostility, we can learn, how do we see through that? Like, this is a hurting person. This is a person who is in self-loathing. How do we keep trusting? And it's hard. It's easier to say than do. And I know that this is not easy. And if we can dedicate ourselves to a universal love, to an agape, to, like Martin Luther King said, the universe bends towards justice. How do we trust that? What are the practices that help us lean in to calm our amygdala, to see deeper, to commit to treating each other with compassion, with kindness, with when we look at each other, like the spark that is alive in you, Sam King, has been traveling 13.8 billion years. Like there is no shadow of a doubt to me that that is absolutely the case, and it's like, wow, how do we enhance that? How do we enhance this spark? That the other thing that always find amazing as a meditation is to reflect on the fact that there have been six extinctions, and at one point 8,000 wars. I think we're now a lot higher than that. And like the 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 life that is still here, how do we see the resiliency in that life? How do we see this deep spark that life, this deep journey that life has been on? And what can we do to keep it all alive? James Carse, right? Finite and infinite games. Like, how do
Mm,
we keep it all alive? The function of society is finite. It's to create order. It's to save us from absolute chaos. It's to create streetlights and, lanes for cars and positions of authority so that decisions can be made more efficiently. That's the hope, right? And then, the function of culture, of human culture, we have a function of human culture is to keep it all at play. And to me,
mm,
that's where my life is dedicated to. I'll follow these rules, but I'm way more interested in how do we create a functional culture and a functional ecology, well, through a functional cosmology. So that's the hope of cosmogenesis, is that it reach, you know, every human being, every person on the planet, so that we, in the process of our own development, have the opportunity to reinvent ourselves.
mm,
Like Thomas Berry said, how do we reinvent the human? Well, I think it starts with story. This is my belief because this is how it happened to me, right? It starts with story. It starts with trusting our instinct. There's something, again, coming back to that, what is the purpose of yoga? The purpose of yoga, what, like a 3,000-year practice, if not longer? Like, the purpose of yoga is for the sake of clarity. Well, for the sake of clarity of what? Well, for the sake of having clarity about the desires in the human heart. And when I look around, I truly believe, because I see it in myself, and I hold this vision for every client I work with, for every human being I interact with, even the ones that aggravate me or hurt me. It's that there is a unique vision. There's a unique instruction in each human heart, and the practices that we teach, such as yoga and mindfulness, help us to get in touch with those instructions. And then
mm,
I believe the path of life is, how do we bring those instructions to life? And the nature-based work has been a huge part of how I've done it. for me, I'd done like 10 years with Animas Valley Institute and my own, nature-based work. That was a container that was incredibly supportive for me as I was listening to this. And imagine a world where we're all aware that we're literally, as Easy Fugate, our friend, says, like surfing on top of a 13.8 billion year wave. Like imagine
Hmm.
a world that whether we're washing the dishes, we're in a tense conversation,
Mm,
or or we are clearing the desk of other
mm,
things
mm,
and and blocking out time and devoting ourselves to this internal pulse or this call, this
mm,
calling,
mm.
this listening to those instructions and listening for, okay, what's the next tiny step? Oh, I need to call Sam and say hi to him and tell him, Cosmogenesis is being produced in Maine next month. Like, oh, and giving into, could we be better listeners? Like in general, for sure. And could we become, what would it take to become better listeners to this deep interior, and to ultimately lean into trust, and ultimately to feel in our bodies and in our beings a secure attachment to the universe itself,
Mm.
becoming securely attached inside of this cosmological context, and understanding that we work for the universe, we work for the
Mm,
earth, and that human beings are still
mm,
trying to figure it all out. We're
mm,
the newest, like you and I were talking before
mm,
we started, we were talking about the Rose Center and the Hayden
mm.
Planetarium and the Cosmological Walk, and for anyone who hasn't been there, you start at the Big Bang and you walk down this walkway, and you go through the epochs that the universe has been through. You go through the 13.8 billion year timeline, and at the very end there's this tiny little petri dish that's like sitting, and inside of it is a tiny little hair, and it says like, that's how long the humans have been here. And you're like, so we're still trying to figure out things out. And I do believe, like people who have walked the Camino, which I'm so excited to walk in next week, um, that we make the path by walking.
Mm,
We make the path by walking. And how, if we keep coming back to a universal love, to maybe a trust, like could we stretch ourselves outside of the amygdala, outside of the fear mind, and give ourselves even 10 minutes a day to rest inside of a bigger story, of a bigger context, and possibly a piece of nature music helps, possibly going out and laying in the meadow, possibly finding a friend you really trust and sitting back to back. What would 10 minutes a day take to surrender into this deeper time, cosmological context that is holding us all, that is coursing with intelligence, creativity, elegance, the forces of communion, of subjectivity, of diversity, like that these are these this is the these are this is the language of that which gave birth to us. And what does it take to actually let that in and receive that wisdom, and trust, and like build a trust with it, with these forces, and allow it to guide our lives. Imagine a few years from now, instead of destroying it all, we're enhancing it all.
Yeah, thank you for sharing so wisely and so abundantly, Rebecca Sophia. Just so, yeah, so struck by all the potency of this cosmogenesis offering and what it can do for the human spirit at this moment of history. And so, as we draw to a close for this conversation today, how can we learn more about the Cosmogenesis project? And do you have any parting message you might leave our
Mm.
listeners with?
Hmm. Sure. You can follow us on cosmogenesisfilm.com. You can follow me on Instagram. It's a little audacious, but I think the universe is audacious, so I'm happy to play that way.
Mm,
The Cosmic Therapist on
mm,
Instagram. Um, and I highly suggest any of your audience, if you're interested in staying connected to Cosmogenesis, the story of us, and um, future offerings, to get on our mailing list, which you can do at the bottom of the homepage of cosmogenesisfilm.com. Come see us in Maine. Come to the premiere. We'd be happy to see you the second night, which is a Saturday. We will be having a panel and the music. I also want to name that I've worked with amazing aerial dancers here in Boulder. So we have aerial footage up on the dome. And I was approached by two local musicians who have made a phenomenal soundtrack, Michael Rempel and Kyle Liss here in Boulder. So the soundtrack is going to be incredible. We're going to release that on Spotify post premiere. So look for that in November. It's epic. I mean, it's truly, they've done a
mm,
phenomenal job. Uh, yeah, I think parting words is actually to echo what Brian said to me that so deeply activated my creativity, which is to imagine a world where time and space unfurl with us. There's not a predestined way it's gonna go. We actually
mm,
can help shape how things evolve.
mm,
We can help shape, and you can look for examples and evidence of this. Look at, if you have a favorite farm, if you're a CSA member and you have a favorite local farm, just look at these farmers and think, what if they had chosen to take a desk job? Or what if they felt that pull and they decided not to listen? There's plenty of reasons not to. There's plenty of temptation not to listen. But oh my gosh, they chose to follow the call and do all of those 10,000 steps it took to secure the land, to build the team, to plant the seeds, to gather the water, to stay the course. Like, that is no small thing. Like, that is epic. And, you know, so they can do it, you can do it, right? So they're shaping time and space. They're shaping how the Earth community and their local neighborhood evolves. You just ate a butternut squash from them. Like, they are literally shaping how time and space unfurl. That's what I mean. It's very practical, it's very grounded. If you feel a tug in your heart to call someone and bridge to them where a connection has been broken, and you keep thinking, oh God, I gotta call that person, like, right? Like, follow, listen deep, look through your deep time eyes, take 10 minutes a day to fall back into the hands and loving embrace of the universe. When you feel conflicted or or upset or dysregulated, take a minute to center, touch base with your own self. May there be safety around you, may there be safety within you, and to stay connected to that deeper pulse and follow, like, be let it lead you.
mm,
It will open up bigger and bigger worlds to you, and you might get to meet amazing people and go amazing places along the way.
mm.
Yeah.
What a galvanizing and uplifting parting message to our listeners. And I'm just so overjoyed to connect with you, to really absorb your creative spark today.
Hmm.
And I'm excited to hopefully experience Cosmogenesis in
Yes.
person when the time
Yes.
is right. And
May it
I'm
be
wishing you
so.
all the best with this premiere, and let's hope that this message will reach widely all across our planet and inspire hearts and minds across the world. Thank you so much, Rebecca Sophia.
You're so welcome, Sam, and thank you for your work. I know you just launched a website. I'm so proud of you and happy for you. And Martin Luther King said, when things get rough, go planetary. And now we're
Mm.
saying, when things get rough, go cosmic, because you
It's
are cosmic.